What is up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another episode of the Chokehold Hour. As always, I am your host, Nate, and we're going to do what we do best as per usual. We're going over this weekend's UFC card, UFC 292, TD Garden in Boston, and the implications are as large as ever. Sugar Sean O'Malley, the possible new cash cow of the UFC, the man that all the hype has been building around for years and years and years, finally gets his shot at the bantamweight strap, is making his ascension to a possible title holder, a lineal belt contender in the UFC. That is Sugar Sean O'Malley, and he is taking on the possible bantamweight GOAT. Not the possible, I should say the undisputed bantamweight GOAT, Aljamain, the Funk Master Sterling. Are you kidding me? Look at this man's resume. His martial arts pedigree, it just speaks for itself. Henry Cejudo, TJ Dillashaw, Piotr Jan twice. This guy is good. And that is an understatement. I am so excited for this card, and that is why here on this podcast, I am going to be going over the entirety of UFC 292 from bottom to top. We're going to make our way from the first fight on the main card all the way to Sugar Sean versus Aljamain Sterling and do everything in between. Now, this card, UFC 292, was supposed to have Cody No Love Garbrandt on the main card facing off against the young killer in Mario Bautista, but due to undisclosed injury on Cody Garbrandt's end, Cody is out of this fight. So that fight is scratched, and I assume Chris Weidman, the All-American, and his bout versus Brad Tavares is going to be pushed up onto the main card. So we're going to start right there, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get right into it. Here we go. Card review starts now. Okay, so we have Chris Weidman, the All-American, taking on Brad Tavares. Now, Brad Tavares is a veteran of the sport. He has good wins. He's on a 2-fight skid right now. Got knocked out by Bruno Silva in his last fight. Before that, he lost a decision to Dricus du Plessis, who we now know is the real deal after his dominating, destructive win over Robert Whittaker, Bobby Knuckles. I mean, that performance was unreal. So, Brad Tavares has been losing to major players in the sport. Bruno Silva, the only man to take Alex Poitin Pereira all the way to the distance and hear that bell in the final round and not get finished or do the finishing in that octagon. Bruno Silva is a dog. Brad Tavares' last win came before those 2 fights against Omari Akhmedov. Now, Chris Weidman has been on the skid, slightly on the skid himself as well. His last fight was long ago in 2021 where he lost to a brutal injury against Uriah Hall. That was just heartbreaking. Chris Weidman, leg absolutely snapped in half. It was just disgusting. You couldn't even look at it if you tried. I mean, the pain that he was suffering on that night, I cannot even begin to imagine that pain. But before that, his last win also came over Omari Akhmedov. So injury aside, Chris Weidman has taken some punishment. Since 2015, he's been TKO'd 5 times by the likes of Yoel Romero, Luke Rockhold, Jacare Souza. He has fought high-level names and has not come out on top. But I think all these guys, the names I just listed, are better than his opponent in Brad Tavares. So let's break down how this fight is going to go. Chris Weidman, I think, is going to get the job done here due to his championship mindset. I saw a clip of Chris Weidman talking on a podcast saying the first thing he is going to do in this fight is just throw a leg kick at Brad Tavares as hard as he possibly can to get over that fear and that lingering feeling of his broken leg from the checked leg kick in his last fight. He is just going to push through it, throw a leg kick right away, and get it over with and done. That is the kind of man we are dealing with here in Chris, the All-American Weidman. He is just ready and willing to die, to win, and do what he wants to do in that octagon at any time, any point, anywhere, and that's why I'm favoring him in this fight. I think Brad Tavares and Chris Weidman do have slightly similar skill sets. They can both wrestle, both hold power in both hands on the feet. I just think that Brad Tavares is on his way out, and Chris Weidman, although his time at the top has passed, wants to end on a good note. His last fight was just brutal. That was an awful way to lose a fight. It's not like he got outclassed or outmatched. A freak accident ended his night in just a short 17 seconds. That is no way any man wants to go out, and it absolutely lights a fire under one and causes and gives them motivation to push forward and become better than they once were. That is why I'm favoring the All-American in this fight. I think his championship mindset is going to play a huge factor in this fight. I think it's going to be a close fight. I think it's going to be a hard-fought fight, and after 15 minutes, 3 rounds of blood, sweat, and tears being left in that octagon, I do think Chris Weidman is going to get his hand raised and come out on top as the victor by decision. I think he's going to use his wrestling. He's going to take Brad Tavares down. He's going to implement himself with strength and control, and on the feet, he's going to be able to land some shots that keep Brad Tavares at bay and let him know, yes, I do have the power to put you out. I also can take you down. He's going to implement every style of mixed martial arts and truly mix up his martial arts skill set and keep Brad Tavares guessing and ride his way to a hard-fought, as I said, 15-minute decision victory. I'm taking Chris, the All-American Weidman, in this fight. If I'm a betting man, I am taking my money and throwing it on Chris Weidman, regardless of the fact that he sits at around a plus 250 underdog in this fight. Give me Chris Weidman, guys. I mean, as I said, I think that championship mindset is going to shine through at UFC 292 this Saturday in Boston. Chris Weidman, the All-American, lock it in. Now, we are going to move on and make our way to the second fight in this main card, I should say, and I do not like this matchup. Just to be frank with you all before I get into it, Marlon Vera takes on the veteran in Pedro Munhoz. Now, Pedro has had a long-lasting and rewarding, very accomplished career. He has done a lot in the game of martial arts and in the UFC in general. He put Cody Garbrandt to sleep. He knocked him out bad when Cody Garbrandt was a real threat at the title. I mean, Pedro's a dog, guys, but Pedro is old. He has not looked that great in his most recent fights. In his last fight against Sugar Sean O'Malley, he looked very uncomfortable in the octagon. He looked like he couldn't find his range, his combinations, his striking, could not implement his wrestling. He really had not a lot of tools for Sugar Sean. Now, that fight did end in disqualification due to an eye poke on Sugar Sean's end. But I do think if that fight went on any longer, Sean O'Malley was going to find Pedro Munhoz's chin and end up landing a TKO blow to finish that fight. I think that Pedro he felt awkward in there. It didn't feel as natural as it should have and as it has in the past for a guy as accomplished as Pedro Munhoz. Now you look at the man on the other side of him, Marlon Vera. Now, Marlon Vera is coming off of a lackluster performance, to put it simply. He got outclassed by Corey Sandhagen. He got outstruck, outgrappled. He just did not hold the candle to Corey Sandhagen, enter the Sandman, as a martial artist on that night. Now, that being said, that does not take away from the danger that Marlon Vera poses to his opponents every single time he steps into that octagon. Marlon Vera lives and dies by the sword. He is a very calculated counterpuncher that holds extreme power for a bantamweight and can knock you out in a split second. In the blink of an eye, any Marlon Vera fight can be over. We saw that against Dominic Cruz, where he put him to sleep with that lead left hand, following it up with the left high kick. Before that, he was absolutely murdering Rob Font. He ate so many shots in that fight, did not show an ounce of wear and tear on his face, and just landed brutal, devastating, near fight-ending blows on Rob Font for the majority of that fight. I believe he had 3 knockdowns in a 5-round fight. He was just relentless in that fight. I think Marlon Vera's power is otherworldly. His timing is otherworldly. If you fall into the traps that Cheeto sets for you throughout the fight, he is going to learn who you are as a fighter. He's going to time your strikes, and he is going to knock you out cold as you fall into one of his powerful right or left hands, your momentum, your forward momentum, giving his shots all the more power, which is exactly what he wanted. Marlon Vera is calculated, and he is dangerous. As I said, his last performance was simply just lackluster. He did not do anything, but that's because Corey Sandhagen is the definition of a mixed martial artist. I don't think that fight was necessarily a drawback on Cheeto's skill set as much as it was a eye-opening type of performance from Corey Sandhagen, and Corey making people realize, wow, this guy's the real deal. I mean, Cheeto just couldn't get anything going simply because Corey was not giving him time to. Corey Sandhagen was landing his jab, landing his right hand, landing his combinations, making Cheeto think defensively on the feet. All of the sudden, as soon as you know it, the Sandman is shooting for a double leg. He's got Cheeto on the ground, and he is controlling him, landing ground and pound strikes, actively searching for a submission. Cheeto gets up. It's back to the combinations, the constant forward pressure. Once again, Corey shoots a double leg. He was just so diverse in that fight. He was so skillful. He just imposed his will and displayed a mastery of martial arts in the octagon and really dominated Marlon Cheeto Vera. But as I said before, I think that is because Corey Sandhagen is just really good and will one day hold that bantamweight gold belt over his shoulder. Marlon Cheeto Vera may get there, he may not. Regardless, though, if you are fighting Marlon Cheeto Vera, you have to be very aware and conscious of what is going on at all times, because he has that X factor, that it factor, the power, the one-punch knockout ability that not many small guys, especially in the bantamweight division, have. He isn't just a striker. He is a power puncher. He hits you with not only technique, but brute force, and it hurts. And I think Pedro Munhoz, a guy who's old, a guy who's gotten hit a lot of times, a guy who, quite frankly, is just not the same fighter that he used to be. I mean, I just don't think this plays well for Pedro. Let's look at Pedro's fight history. So, as we said, he had that DQ against Sugar Sean O'Malley. He's coming off of a solid win over Chris Gutierrez, who is a solid fighter. He knocked out Frankie Edgar with a knee, but Chris has power. He's just not very multifaceted. Pedro was able to employ himself as a martial artist in that fight and use more tools and skills to win that fight. Now, Pedro, in 2021, he lost to Dominic Cruz. Dominic Cruz, this is the guy we were just talking about who got absolutely knocked out cold, sent to the shadow realm, separated from consciousness by Marlon Cheeto Vera. Now, I know MMA math doesn't work, but I don't think we need any MMA math in this case. I think Cheeto is just the stronger, more powerful, more youthful fighter in this case. Now, Pedro Munhoz also lost to an older Frankie Edgar in 2020. Frankie was not in his prime at that point. It did not matter. He was better than Pedro Munhoz on that night. I think Pedro is just, man, I just don't think he's got it in him anymore. He's not. Pedro Munhoz is getting up there in age, guys. He's 36 years old at this point. That is very, very old for a martial artist, especially considering the fact that he started so long ago. I mean, Pedro Munhoz has been in the UFC since 2014. Are you kidding me? In just a year, that will be a decade's worth of time in the Ultimate Fighting Championship, going to war, getting punched in the head, getting brain damage induced upon himself, and giving others brain damage, losing his youthfulness, his ability to take punches, his chin, his endurance. All of that fades when you fight for as long as Pedro Munhoz has, and I think that is going to come into play against Marlon Cheeto Vera. I do think Cheeto is going to find that one punch in this fight and finish this fight by TKO. Guys, if I'm a betting man, as I said before, lock it in, take it to the bank. I am putting the house on Marlon Cheeto Vera to win this fight by knockout. I think his youthfulness, as I said, is going to explode in this fight, and his explosivity as a fighter will also just shine through into the octagon and shine upon Pedro Munhoz, who will soon learn the true power that Marlon Cheeto Vera holds in both of his fists. Guys, give me Marlon Cheeto Vera by knockout in this fight. That is my prediction. Now, we are going to move on and move forward to the third fight on this main card, and I am as excited for this one as any fight I've been excited for this year. Ian Machado Garry, the future, the Irishman himself, takes on the last-minute replacement for Jeff Neal, the other Neal in Neil Magny. Now, guys, I love this fight. I do think Jeff Neal was a more dangerous opponent for Ian Garry because styles make fights, and Jeff Neal is a power puncher. He's a brawler, and we haven't really seen anybody test Ian Garry like Jeff Neal would have, because if Jeff Neal hit Ian Garry, who knows how Ian would have reacted. Now, Neal, he's more of a calculated fighter. He wins by decision. But Ian Garry is the most calculated fighter in possibly the UFC right now. I mean, obviously, you have Israel Adesanya. You have guys their resumes just speak for themselves, but I think Ian Garry does have that it factor. He's very smart. His fight IQ is very, very high. Look at his most recent fight against D-Rod, Daniel Rodriguez. Ian Garry knew what he wanted to do that whole time and did it. He did exactly what he planned. He threw that body kick he threw that right body kick repetitively over and over at D-Rod, kept landing on D-Rod's liver, saw D-Rod dropping his hands, continued to throw that body kick, forcing him to consistently drop his hands, and waited for the perfect moment until he knew D-Rod was totally defenseless up top near his face and 100% consciously thinking about that body kick, trying to stop that body kick. Ian Garry goes high, throws the head kick, and knocks out Daniel Rodriguez. That was just beautiful. Martial arts ability and skill set showing from Ian Garry. I think he is just so damn smart in that octagon. Not only that, he is very, very talented. He is tall, he is lengthy, he has power, he has technique, he has precision, he has all the tools on the feet to be a great striker, especially in the game of martial arts. Now you look at Neil Magny, nothing really stands out to me. He's an above average fighter with above average characteristics in every aspect of martial arts. He is not any sort of specialist, which can be good, but he's not above average enough in every aspect of the game to be great. Like, you look at a guy like Dricus du Plessis, nothing really stands out. Like, you don't look at him and say, oh, he's an otherworldly level striker. Oh, he is the best grappler I've ever seen. He just has very solid judo throws. He is a powerful puncher. He has an awkward style, and his above averageness in everything comes together to create a very hard fighter to defeat, which allows him to finish fights and not just ride out decision victories. Neil Magny is good, but he has won the majority of his fights that he does win by decision. I just don't think his style bodes well against a guy like Ian Garry. Neil Magny is taller. He has that length, which Jeff would not have had or held a candle to against Ian Garry. But I just think Ian is more skilled. I mean, Neil's coming off of a relatively close decision win over Phil Rowe. Phil Rowe is talented, but he is no Ian Garry. I just don't think there's many guys that are as technically gifted as Ian is on the feet. He is very, very solid. And not on top of the fact that Ian Garry went to Sao Paulo and trained shoot box with Charles Oliveira and his fellow Brazilians, Ian Garry trains at Sanford MMA. Who is his teammate at Sanford? Gilbert Durinho Burns. What did Gilbert Durinho Burns do to Neil Magny? He submitted him, and submitted him easily at that in the first round of their bout. Ian Garry does not only have the tools to defeat Neil Magny, he literally has the blueprint from his teammate who has already gotten the job done against Neil Magny. He has a man who dominated Neil Magny. The fight was not even close, and that man is in Ian Garry's ear, giving him advice leading up to this bout. Now, the fight was short notice, so he has not had this advice for the entirety of his training camp. Nonetheless, though, Ian Garry has the blueprint. It's there. Gilbert and Ian are very different fighters, but Gilbert has felt Neil Magny's power. He's felt his presence in the octagon, and he's overcome that presence and was able to secure a victory over Neil Magny. So I think all of these factors being considered, Ian Garry's going to get the job done, and it is not going to go 3 rounds. I think Ian Garry does get the finish on the feet in this fight. I think he's able to use his length, land lengthy combinations, string together some shots, and eventually set up a possible high kick like he did against D-Rod, or a nice right hand that will clip the chin of Neil Magny, send him to the canvas, a couple ground and pound shots, it's over. TKO win awarded to Ian Garry, and this will be the beginning of his ascension to UFC gold. Maybe he will fight Jeff Neal after this. That could get rescheduled. Maybe he fights higher up in the rankings against Shavkat Rakhmonov or someone like that. But I do truly believe Ian Garry wins this fight, wins 2 more after that, and finds himself fighting for UFC gold. I think Ian Garry is that good. He has that it factor, that X factor. He has the fandom, he has the fan base, he has the stardom, he has the personality, he has the skill, he has the mind. He has all the tools to be great. And I think we are going to see those tools implemented in the octagon come this Saturday when he finishes Neil Magny on the feet by dominant TKO. That is my prediction. Take it to the bank. Lock it in. That's it. If you want to make some money, Ian Garry is your boy, and he is also coining his nickname, The Future. He is the future of this sport. Now, that being said, we are going to move on to the co-main event in TD Garden in Boston at UFC 292, where UFC gold is on the line between Zhang Weili and Amanda Lemos. Guys, to be honest, I don't think Amanda Lemos even deserved this title shot. You have Yan Xiaonan coming off of a first-round knockout over Jessica Andrade. She has been very dominant in her recent fights. It would make for massive publicity overseas in China with two Chinese female fighters fighting for the same belt. It would have been a great fight. Nonetheless, didn't happen. Amanda Lemos gets the shot. Now, guys, I gotta be honest with you. I am taking Zhang Weili, in this fight by a long shot. I think Weili is just too skillful and too powerful for Amanda Lemos. Amanda Lemos is good. Do not get me wrong. She's looked good in her most recent fights, coming off of a TKO win over Marina Rodriguez. Before that, she submitted the karate hottie in the second round of their bout, Michelle Watterson. She has looked good, but the level of competition is not necessarily there. And when she did face a high-level female fighter in Jessica Andrade, the woman who got knocked out by Yan Xiaonan, she got submitted in the first round. She got out-muscled by Jessica Andrade and choked out by a standing arm triangle. That just about never happens in martial arts, but it did because Jessica Andrade was just that much physically more gifted than Amanda Lemos. You look at Zhang Weili. She is a very similar makeup. She has a very similar makeup as a fighter to Jessica Andrade. Her physical abilities set her far and apart from her female counterparts in the UFC. She is more powerful than most women. She has knockout power that many women do not contain within their skill set, within their game. If Zhang Weili finds your chin, man, the fight it just very well could be over in an instant. And you have to look at her most recent opponents. I mean, Weili has just dominated everybody she's seen recently, destroyed Joanna Jędrzejczyk in her return to the UFC, goes on to dominate Carla Esparza and win the title by second round submission. She hasn't shown much weakness in her previous fight. She's looked much better than her opponents, and while Amanda Lemos has also looked solid, her opponent's level of skill are just not the same as Zhang Weili. Zhang Weili is more experienced. She has been in championship fights. Amanda Lemos has never fought for a belt. She got submitted by Jessica Andrade very easily at that. I know that was 3 fights ago. Things change. But man, I just can't favor Amanda Lemos in this fight. Weili is just too dang strong. She's too physical. She's too skilled. She's too freaking good. I mean, Weili is the real deal, guys. And I think she might hold this belt for a little bit. I think Zhang Weili defeats Amanda Lemos. Possibly dominates Amanda Lemos and finds a finish within the 25 minutes that they fight. I don't think this fight goes to the distance like a lot of women's MMA fights do, because Weili, like I said, she's a freaking killer. She is a killer. She has that dog in her. She has that one-punch power, backed with all the technique and years of skill and practice that she has accumulated as a martial artist. I just think she's really good, and I think she's good enough where I can confidently say Zhang Weili gets the job done and defeats Amanda Lemos within the distance. That is my pick. Lock it in. I'm taking Weili any day of the week, Monday through Sunday. It does not matter. Give me Zhang Weili over Amanda Lemos anytime, anywhere that they do fight. I think Weili is going to retain her gold belt and move on to another and better title defense against Yan Xiaonan after this fight. Chinese versus Chinese fighter. The implications will be huge, and I am beyond excited to watch that fight. That is if and when Zhang Weili gets past Amanda Lemos come this Saturday. That is my review, or my prediction, should I say, for the co-main event at TD Garden, UFC 292. Now, let's move on to the fight that we have all been waiting to talk about. I've been waiting to talk about it. You have been waiting to hear about it. Everybody has been waiting for it to happen. The buildup has been ridiculous. These two fighters genuinely hate each other. We have Sugar Sean O'Malley, the #1 contender, coming off of his split decision win over Petr Yan, going up against the Bantamweight GOAT, Aljamain the Funkmaster Sterling. Aljamain Sterling defeated Henry Cejudo. He defeated TJ Dillashaw. He's beaten Petr Yan twice. This man's resume is unmatched. No one holds a candle to what this man has done in the bantamweight division, which is why I consider him the undisputed greatest bantamweight fighter of all time. Now, we are going to break down this fight, and I truly do think it is it's a very interesting matchup because, yes, it could go either way. Let's look at Aljamain the Funkmaster Sterling. Let's break down the champion's skill set before we get to the number one contender. Aljamain Sterling, first and foremost, is a wrestler. He is a grappler. He doesn't have the wrestling pedigree like a guy like Henry Cejudo did. Henry Cejudo, he has a gold medal. He is one of the greatest freestyle wrestlers in possibly the best freestyle wrestler in bantamweight history. Aljamain Sterling out-wrestled him. Aljamain Sterling's grappling is built. It is catered towards martial arts. He is a very good grappler within the game of martial arts. He does a very good job of putting his strikes together and allowing his strikes to lead to a takedown or a taking of his opponent's back. And he proved that MMA grappling is it's more proficient than straight wrestling in a martial arts fight when he out-grappled Henry Cejudo, the Olympic gold medalist. He also absolutely dominated TJ Dillashaw, took him down, and just ground and pounded him into oblivion for the entirety of that fight until it was stopped by TKO in the second round. Aljamain Sterling, looking back before he held the title, took down Corey Sandhagen and choked him to sleep in the first 2 minutes of their fight. That was an incredible performance, and he has looked damn good ever since. Aljamain Sterling is the real deal and has cemented his legacy as the bantamweight GOAT. He is a very good grappler. His cardio never wavers. He is not a bad striker either. He does a good job of implementing kicks to the body, striking his opponent's body to take away from their cardio, wear them down, and make it easier for him to land takedowns of his own. He's a pressure fighter who also can fight off his back foot, like we saw against Petr Yan when he was landing those body kicks off of his back foot. He is very, very good. And if he gets Sugar Sean's neck, I don't know if Sugar's going to be able to escape. If Aljamain Sterling gets the back of Sean O'Malley, I just don't think it's going to go the way that it did when Alja was on Petr's back. Petr Yan is a skilled grappler. Sugar Sean O'Malley has not necessarily shown his ability to counteract and wrestle with high-level wrestlers in the UFC. He did a good job at getting back to his feet against Petr Yan when he was taken down, but Petr is no Aljamain on the ground. So I think if Aljamain Sterling grabs Sugar Sean O'Malley's back at any point in this fight, it's over. Now, that being said, scratch everything I just said. I am taking Sugar Sean O'Malley to win this fight by TKO, and here's why. I believe so strongly in my heart that the hype behind Sugar Sean O'Malley is real. I think he is possibly the greatest striker to come into the UFC. The way he mixes up his tools and uses his length to string together long boxing combinations and land spinning kicks and kicks to the body. He just puts it all together on the feet, and I think he is so good at finding his opponent's chin. He has a way with his fists. He knows how to hit you, where to hit you, and when to hit you, so he can and will put you to sleep. Sugar Sean does not rely on his power. He relies on his technique. He's very different than Cheeto. Cheeto wants to knock you out. Sugar Sean wants to lure you in. He wants to make you fall for his feints, and he wants to set you up, frame you, put you in a place where he knows exactly where you will be, and then, only then, he will throw and fully commit and extend on his shot and land on your chin, putting you to sleep. I think Sugar Sean O'Malley is a very, very good fighter, and I think this is the reason Sugar Sean is going to win this fight. His knees are very good. He has very lengthy legs, and when he throws those knees, he cuts you open. He slices you open bad. Look at the third round in his most recent fight against Petr Yan. The reason he won that third round, he landed a huge knee that created a gash over Petr's eye that was bleeding endlessly. I truly think if that fight was a 5-round fight, it was getting stopped due to doctor stoppage. I don't think that fight or that cut was I don't think there was any sort of ability to fight on with a cut like the one Petr had that Sugar induced on him with that knee. Sugar Sean O'Malley is very lengthy. He's very good at timing his knees, and when they land, they hurt. Now let's look at the opponent on the other side of him in Aljamain Sterling. If we look back long ago, before Aljamain's greatness, when he was still on the come-up, he fought Marlon Moraes, a man who is no longer in the UFC, a man who had a huge downfall in the game of martial arts and is getting knocked out left and right in the PFL. But let's not allow this to prevent us from remembering the greatness of Marlon Moraes. Marlon Moraes was a damn good striker, and he showed it against Aljamain Sterling, the current champion. When they fought, Aljamain Sterling shot a sloppy takedown. Knee lands for Marlon Moraes. Boom. Fight's over. Aljamain is out cold. I mean, Aljo doesn't really shoot sloppily like he used to. He's much more of a tighter fighter now. He uses his skills when they need to be used. But man, that knee, it's just hard to forget about because Aljamain was lifeless on the canvas. And I think if Sugar's able to land a knee like that, the result will be no different. You can improve your mental toughness. You can condition your neck to improve your chin and your ability to take shots as much as you want. But when a perfect strike lands on your chin, on your temple, or behind your ear, there is nothing any human being on the planet that is this green earth that we live on can do about it to stay awake. You go to sleep, point blank, period. And I think that is what is going to happen come this Saturday in TD Garden. I think Sugar Sean O'Malley is going to be the man of the arena, establish himself in that octagon, land some jabs, maintain range, use his striking and his length to keep Aljamain's grappling and forward pressure at bay, and eventually Aljamain is going to shoot a sloppy takedown in the, I'd say, second or third round, maybe the fourth, but that is pushing it, and Sugar Sean O'Malley is going to land that knee, and it's going to find a home on Aljamain Sterling's chin, leave a mark right there, and Sugar Sean O'Malley will leave his mark on the Ultimate Fighting Championship and the world as a whole as he attains and wraps the Bantamweight gold belt around his waist. I think it is going to be probably the biggest moment of the year in martial arts, and I think there is no one better to be the center of that moment than Sugar Sean O'Malley. His personality is there. He's like Ian Garry. Those two guys, they have what's called the it factor. Conor McGregor had it. Chuck Liddell had it. Anderson Silva had it. These guys that everybody, when they walk out to the octagon, your spine tingles. Your whole body is shaking. You are nervous because you do not know what is going to happen when this man steps into the cage. That is the factor that Sugar Sean O'Malley brings to the octagon. That is what he does. He shakes things up. He stays unpredictable. He uses different varying strikes to hurt and severely hurt at that his opponents, and he does things in ways that just capture the minds and imaginations and just souls and hearts of the people in the audience watching live and at home on TV. Sugar Sean O'Malley is really, really good, and I think his striking is going to find a way to prevail this Saturday. Now, let this be said, none of this takes away from what Aljamain Sterling has done at the bantamweight division. He is the greatest bantamweight fighter of all time. He has beaten TJ Dillashaw, beaten Henry Cejudo, beat Piotr Jan twice, beat Corey Sandhagen. He has beat damn near everybody. Even Pedro Munhoz, another name, he has beat. But, regardless, ignoring all of the greatness that is held in the palms of Aljamain Sterling, ignoring all of the skills that he has, all of the grappling tools he possesses, ignoring everything that logically says Aljamain Sterling will win this fight, I think Sugar Sean is going to find a way to get it done. And that way, like I said, is going to be the knee. Now, if it's not the knee, I do think Sugar Sean wins this fight by knockout. If it goes the distance, I think Aljo will have probably imposed his will and wrestled his way to a decision win. But I don't think that's going to happen, guys. I am taking Sugar Sean O'Malley, the rainbow-haired menace, the beast, the white man with dreads who comes into the octagon, shows up and shows out, absolutely destroying his opponents, leaving them blank and lifeless on the octagon floor. I think Sugar Sean O'Malley will force Bruce Buffer to echo the words "and new" throughout the arena that is TD Garden. It will be the biggest moment of the year in martial arts. It will be the biggest moment of Sugar Sean O'Malley's career, and it will be the start of a dynasty. It will be the start of a superstar. It will be the start of the Sugar Sean O'Malley reign, where he takes the UFC and grabs it by a damn chokehold. He has everybody, every viewer, everybody and their mother on the edge of their seat, waiting wondering when he's going to fight next, waiting to see how his fights will go, how he will finish his opponents. I think Sugar Sean O'Malley is going to use his striking to ascend to the next level and become the bantamweight champion of the world. That is my pick, Sugar Sean O'Malley by TKO. Lock it in, take it to the bank. If you are a betting man, and if I were you, I would take my money and I would put it on Sean O'Malley because the odds are damn good. You will get a lot of value out of Sean O'Malley. And not only that, I truly think it is time for the greatness of Sean O'Malley to be shown to the entirety of the world on live television on this pay-per-view event. Sugar Sean O'Malley gets the job done. Sugar Sean O'Malley by TKO. Lock it in. That is my pick. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching the Chokehold Hour. Once again, as always, I love what I do. This is what I do. I make podcasts. I talk to y'all about martial arts and about how I think fights are going to go. And honestly, it really is just a privilege for me to be able to get this opportunity to talk to you all about martial arts. And my last video got about 500 views. That's the most I've ever gotten. So I want to thank all of you for watching, guys. Keep the support coming. And I really am just appreciative of every single person who tunes in. And I really do think tuning in is worth your while because I will make you some money. Guys, the past 2.5 weeks, I have not been wrong once. Saturday night, I threw some money on Vicente Luque. He got the job done. The week before that, I took Corey Sandhagen and I took Tatiana Suarez by submission. Both of those things happened. Now, if you look before that, I predicted Kevin Holland to win by Darce choke. Guys, these past 2.5 weeks, I have been absolutely electric, on fire with my picks. And as much as I love talking about martial arts, I also truly believe that I have a mind for the game and know what I am talking about. When I watch these fights, I understand what is happening, and that's why I'm able to predict these fights so often. Now, will I always be right? No. But the majority of the time, I do think I will be right. And if you watch these podcasts all the way through, I promise you can put together a mean parlay that will make you hundreds and hundreds of dollars depending on how much you put on it with great odds. So yeah, I mean, again, I love doing this. I love what I do. And it's really an honor to share with you all my picks and my knowledge of the game. And it also is super rewarding to see you all tail my picks and make money with me because that is what it's about. Watching martial arts, appreciating martial arts, and maybe, just maybe, making a little money off of it too. So once again, I want to thank everybody who watched. Thank you for watching. Thank you so much as per usual. You guys know we'll be back at it next week with a recap of this card. I'll talk to you all about the fights, how they went, breaking things down. And as always, we're going to keep producing content, pushing it out there because, guys, it is only up from here. The Chokehold Hour is the new up-and-coming podcast in martial arts. Guys, the Mixed Martial Arts Awards are coming out right now. You have the Anik Florian podcast. You have Morning Combat. All these amazing productions nominated. I promise you, one day, us, together, we, the Chokehold Hour, myself, my partner, Zach Steklo, and all of you, the people I don't consider my fans, the people I consider my friends who watch and tail my picks, we are going to be up there one day. Thank you all so much for watching. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Chokehold Hour.